Destiny Rise of Iron and get the Iron Gallarhorn.
It's the middle of September, and The Last Guardian should have been out next month. It's recently been delayed until early December. However, Justin Haywald recently went down to Sony and had a chance to play the game, which I believe is the first time that anyone at GameSpot has played The Last Guardian.
No, it's not the first time that we played it, and this is the build that they're showing at TGS. We got to see it a little bit at E3. I got a little bit of hands-on, but this is the first time when we've been able to record our gameplay, when we're able to show off how really bad we are at the game. I felt like I was taking my first steps in a new body, in a new world in this game at sometimes. And to be fair, so what we saw of the game this time, it wasn't the beginning. This was not the tutorial. This was not an intro to the world. It was kind of throwing you into the middle. So there were some things that you were kind of expected to already know. So as you watch the footage, you see that the game shows you push this button to push something, to push this button to jump. And I think those are things that you would be expected to know at that point. How to interact with the monster and how to just interact in the world. But for me, jumping in right at that point, it was definitely a steep learning curve. But I don't think that's going to be indicative of the final game.
So a lot of the things that I think people are wondering about are the things that they've been showing for a long time. That includes, is it Trico, this sort of hybrid animal that you are, I believe, guarding, although I'm curious, maybe he's the guardian of the boy in the end. But how does it... No, that could make sense. But I'm curious, like, how was your interactions with Trico? Like, did it feel like he was a companion? Did it really feel like you weren't that familiar with him yet? Because I know the devs explained that as you develop, as you spend more time with him, you'll be able to understand each other a little bit better. Like, how did that experience work out?
So I'm kind of two minds around Trico. I love the design of the creature. I remember when I first saw it that I wasn't really that taken with it, but when you see him from a distance and he has those glowing green cat eyes, like, it just looks so cool to see him through shadow, and then you get up close and that mix of fur and feathers as you climb onto his back and clamber over him. Like, it's a really cool looking creature, and it feels both kind of cute and menacing and scary at the same time, and you don't really know what to expect out of it. And it felt like at the portion where I was at in the game, there was not a super close bond. And maybe that's what they were trying to get across with that section of gameplay. So you can call to the creature. It's a lot like Eco in that sense, where you can call to your companion and they'll come towards you. And in this case, Trico might come towards you. You can kind of point him towards things. You can direct him. He's not always going to listen right away, though, it's both frustrating because you're playing a game and you're solving puzzles that are very similar to the other games in that series that they've done before. So you kind of want to get that puzzle to, like, I know how to solve this. I'm sure if I go pull this thing, it'll make the door come open. But at the same time, it does give it that personality where it's almost like a precocious child or a pet like a cat who is not necessarily going to listen to you when you say, hey cat, go over there, and then the cat just like looks over at the corner and goes, no.
Yeah,
I'm not going to do that.
That never works. You cannot tell a cat what to do.
And Trico is a mix of different kinds of animals. The strongest one, and I think its mannerisms and the way that it moves, is a cat. So it's just like a weird dog, bird-looking cat creature.
So it's somewhat aloof, maybe?
It's aloof in some ways, but... And I feel like this is another thing that just takes you have to spend a lot of time in the game to get the hang of.
Yeah.
But the way that he reacts to things around you is kind of how you know what to do in the game. So I don't think you're going to get as blatant hints as I got in the game, where both things are popping up on screen saying, do this, and I had developers around me who were helping out with, like, well, if you would have already learned that if you grab this item, this is how you kind of use that. If you watch Trico, though, he looks around at his environment. So he looks up. There's one part where he's looking up at the ceiling and a thing that you have to light. And when you light that, then he jumps up on there because he's like attracted to the light. He wants to be closer to that. And then if you ride on his back when he jumps up there, then that gets you to this higher ledge and you're able to solve the puzzle that way.
Okay. So did maybe your anticipation or your hype, did you feel like finally picking this controller up and playing the game like delivered what you were expecting? And if not, maybe how is this different from Fumito Ueda's past works, Eco and Shadow of the Colossus?
The years, I think, have in some ways diluted what this experience could have been. Because coming off of Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, like just two amazing experiences that tell you so much about the world and how to play the game without ever being very explicit.
Yeah.
Like you are just kind of forced to figure things out. And it's hard to get a feel for that if you're not going in from the very beginning, because I think a lot of the tutorial elements from Ico and Shadow of the Colossus in particular are very subtle. So you have those elements in The Last Guardian as well, where there's a lot going on in this world, and it's not clear what all of it means. And you kind of want to explore it. You want answers to these things, and I don't think you're going to get answers to everything. But at the same time, it also feels like it borrows maybe a little too much from for me in particular, a lot from Ico, because now you're back in a castle, and I see things that are very familiar. I don't think it's the same castle, but it also doesn't feel quite as fresh, as new, as something that is surprising and that I didn't know what I was getting into. I felt very familiar, which isn't necessarily a negative thing, but after waiting all this time, after having played through Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, I kind of wanted another experience that's just going to surprise me.
So one of the things that is pretty particular about Ueda's games in the past is the controls have been somewhat floaty, right? They're not. It's not this precise thing. You're sort of wrestling with a very organic feeling character. How does that translate to The Last Guardian, especially from some of the stuff I saw? You're walking on pretty precarious land and structures.
Yeah, you do have to be very, very careful with the way that you move your character, because he does make an open world, and we've seen that in the other games, where if you're walking along a ledge, if you're not careful, you can just walk off that ledge, and it can either kill you or send you back to the beginning of a puzzle, and that happened to be a few times. But at the same time, after having played so many games that have such tight controls, I'm a little bit hesitant to feel like this is going to be the finished product. Like, I hope that the controls have some more work that's going to be done to them.
All right, thanks, Justin, for all that new info. The rest of us will get a chance to play the game in about 3 months' time. I'm hoping it's worth the wait. What are you hoping? Let us know in the comments below. Do you think The Last Guardian will live up to its prolonged development cycle? Otherwise, stay tuned to GameSpot.com for more coverage of The Last Guardian as the release approaches.